Good morning, everybody. This is Laura Petersen, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with the stats like I always do and kind of go through things. Now, this was the end of the month, which means there are more sales than there usually are at the end of the month. They always increase a little bit. You might be thinking, well, we're not at the end of the month, but the period reported is. It's from March 29th to April 4th. And basically the bottom line is that the number of homes sold went from 691 to 862. Now, I am looking at the counties of Lake, Orange, Osceola, Polk, and Seminole. We've changed it a little bit. We swapped Polk for Volusia, and so that's kind of what the difference is here. So the numbers are a little bit higher. The Volusia numbers are a lot lower than the Polk are, so it definitely changes it a little bit. It changes because of that as an outline that the median price is down a little bit too, because the Polk County homes being more prevalent and that kind of thing is going to bring the overall average down. So I'm going to go through the counties as well and just tell you what the average is in all of them as well. But the median price in overall went from $395 to $412. So that's what the scoop is in regards to that. When we're looking at the overall stats in regards to how everything shakes down of those 862 properties, there are 49 of them that are under 250, 91 between 250 and 300, 259 between 300 and 400, 173 between 4 and 5, 242 between 500 and a million, which is a good number for that category for sure, and 48 over a million. So when we're getting down to it, that's kind of what the scoop is on all of that. The average days to contract is 84 overall. And so that's kind of what the scoop is when you're looking at that. Basically, when we're looking at the condos, townhomes, and villas, basically, we are looking at a median price that went from $279,999 to $317,450. So that was up as well. And the number went from 145 to 200. So what we find usually in the condos, townhomes, and villas is that we basically have a situation where we have a high amount of inventory. What we're looking at, for example, last week as we sold 200 is what I said, and then there are 2,674 on the market. So if you take that, 200, and so that gives us about 10 months of inventory, which is quite a bit higher. And this is a high week, like I said, because it's the end of the month. And so that makes a difference as well. But the under 250 are 53. There were 37 between 250 and 300, 72 between 300 and 400, 25 between 4 and 500, 12 between 500 and a million, and none of them sold over a million this week again. So the interesting thing about that is when we're looking at the over a million, when one sells, it looks like, wow, there's, not hardly any inventory out there. But then when none sell, you're like going, oh, well, there is. But there are 20 properties over a million that are condos and townhouses and villas that are on the market. And so that's what, there wasn't any that sold this particular week. And the average day to contract here is 96 versus 74 when it came to the single family homes. Now, one new thing that I'm kind of adding here that I'm going to throw in here is the long-term leases, that the median price stayed the same at $2,100. And when you're looking at single family homes, it's like $2,250 to $2,300 from last week to this week. When you're looking at condos and townhomes and villas, $1,900 to $1,850. So it's a little bit less when you're looking at those kinds of things. When we're looking at the single family homes, and like, remember I told you it's a little bit different in the different counties and everything. So the median price, as we discussed, is basically $412,750 over all the counties. But when we break it down to the different counties, the median price in Orange County is $537,800. In Seminole County, it's 488.7. In Osceola, it's 449.7. In Lake County, it's 440.3. And I don't have the number in front of me in regards to what it is for Polk County. But you can see that basically when you're looking at all of that, well, actually, I'm going to look at the Polk County one right here to let you know so that we're looking at apples and oranges. So basically, the Polk County median price is $330. So when there were a total of 243 in our number, that's what pulls that median price down overall. So you can see that the market hasn't changed. If you listened to a few weeks ago and you're going, well, those numbers are quite significantly different. No, they're really not. It's just looking at a different situation in regards to how all that shook down and everything like that. So that's kind of basically the state of the market in regards to what's going on. A couple more things that I wanted to talk about in regards to the stats is that pulling out from the state that they have a thing that's from 20 and 25 the whole year. And I know it's back a few months, but it kind of gives you an idea in regards to what's going on. In the Orlando, Kissimmee, Sanford, what they call the MSA, which is that area, that's Lake Orange, Osceola, and Seminole counties, there were 28,475 houses that sold in 2025. Now that's down 0.7% from 2024. The median price was at $445 for the homes, and that is up 0.1%, so pretty much stayed even. Also in the condos, townhomes, and villas, there were 8,164 that sold versus the 28,475. That's down 8.5%. And the the median price for the condos, townhomes, and villas was $310, and that's down 2.4% year over year. So when you're looking at that, that kind of tells the story in regards to where we're at. The condo inventory is significantly higher, and because they've gone through a lot of requirements and all of that kind of good stuff in regards to what has to happen, for them, then that's really an important thing that I think that we need to look at when you're going to get a condo, townhome, and villa for a lot less. And they have put all of these requirements on them in regards to analysis ever since the Surfside condo building fell a few years ago. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of checks and balances to make sure that there aren't any problems, which is obviously a good thing. That's the last thing that we want to have happen. So one of the interesting things that, you always hear people that they say that they want to look at is in regards to basically people want deals, right? They want foreclosure, or they want a short sale, and looking at what's going on. And you would think that, or you would wonder, is there a big foreclosure and short sale market out there? Now, when there really was back in about 2008 to 2012, there were the majority of the properties that were on the market, or very close to the majority, it was right around 50%, were either short sales or foreclosures. At one point, it was like 70% that was it. But now when you look at it, basically for 2025 in the whole state of Florida is what we're looking at. There were 252,557 properties that sold in the whole state of Florida. And in 2024, it was 250,456. So that was, the number went up 0.8%. In our area, remember, it went down like 1%. The median sales price in the whole state in 2025 was 415,000, and 2024 was 420. So I call that pretty even, but basically it's down 1.2%, so not a big deal. When you're looking at how many foreclosed or REO homes there are, so traditional, there were 252,000. Foreclosure slash REO was 1,935. So very low number in regards to, what's going on out there in foreclosure. And short sale, there were 520 of them. And so 1935 in 2025, 1905 in 2024 for the single family homes. And the short sales, they were at 520 for 2025 and 327 for 2024. So basically a very, very slim amount of the properties that are out there are actually distressed. Now there's more distressed properties out there, but they're just not foreclosed by the bank. They might be under a different name, title, whatever. So that's kind of what the scoop is there. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Petersen, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty, and to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I was kind of looking at something here that was showing that Florida leads in master plan communities. So this isn't necessarily all our area, but this is new homes that are built in master plan communities. And even though it's not necessarily right here, it's very close to here, which is the Villages. And they were number one on the list with, basically in regards to where they were at. And they were 16 years on the list in being in the annual rankings. Now, the number of new homes that were sold in the Villages, these are brand new homes, were 3,611 in 2025. So it is definitely a growing, sprawling community still. Number two on the list in the country is Lakewood Ranch, which is over there in Sarasota. And they actually sold 2,085 new homes last year. Then next on the list in regards to what's there is Vieira, which is in Palm Bay. That's number 5 on the list. And then Nocatee, which is in Jacksonville, that was number 9 on the list overall. But when you're looking at our top performing communities, none of these are in Orlando, but it tells how many are being sold in each area. So the Villages, like I said, was 2,611. Lakewood Ranch was 2,085. Babcock Ranch in Fort Myers was 1,066. Silverleaf in Jacksonville was 1,002. Welland Park in Sarasota was 992. Mirada in Tampa, 741. Two Rivers in Tampa was 624. Ave Maria in Naples was 515. Vieira was 509. And Rivertown in Jacksonville was 502. So the thing that the difference between the list is that the companies that were over 10 years on the list that I mentioned at the beginning. So the Villages have been on there 16 years, Lakewood Ranch 16 years, Vieira and Palm Bay 11, and Nocatee and Jacksonville is 10. So they're established communities, still growing is basically what it's looking at. So you might think, okay, well, in our area, how many new homes were sold in 2025? And the number is 12,050 is what was reported by HUD. So 12,000 homes are new homes are what's being built in Orlando. So the difference between what this master home community and what they're talking about and really new home construction in regards to our area here in Central Florida is basically that the new homes that are being built here are mostly in smaller subdivisions. So they might have basically like 300, 500, 1,000 homes, but they're not big master plan communities, which is what this is talking about. And the definition kind of a master plan community is where they've got, basically the that they've got the commercial and they've got the housing and the activities and all of those kinds of things are all kind of built into one. So they've got like restaurants that are actually on premises in their community. They've got all of the amenities and everything as well. And so that's kind of, what they've got in regards to what's going on. So basically, if they're, like the villages that have been on on this list for 16 years, as well as Lakewood Ranch in Sarasota, for 16 years, they are very big communities, and they're building a couple thousand in Sarasota's place every year in that community. But you know, they've been doing that for 16 years, so it's very big. And like the villages are well over 90,000 houses and everything now. And so as a result of that, it's it's a really big community. And so those are the master plan versus the new builds. But getting back to that, in regards to what I wanted to talk about in the new builds and the communities in Orlando and the area surrounding. There are a lot of them. When we pull up how many communities and everything that there are, that I can find very easily is over 250 that are being built at this point in time in our area. So my biggest point about this to you as a consumer, as a buyer, is that, when you're looking at it, I don't think that you're going to evaluate 250 of them. And if you just cut that in a quarter because you're looking at, hey, I want to be in this northwest corner, northeast corner, whatever, in regards to that, there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or 60 communities that are in that particular area. And because some of them are smaller than others, and you don't necessarily notice them right off the bat and know exactly what's there, you could make a decision that you wouldn't, you could make a better decision. Let's say you're not going to necessarily make a bad decision, but I think that you could make a better decision if you evaluated the whole area and all of them that are out there. And what I mean by that is that in a lot of the communities, the new home communities that are being built today, they have what they call a CDD, which is a community district development, and they do in all these master plan communities as well. And they probably started them there. The first place I heard about it was Celebration, 20 some years ago. But basically, when I got in the business, by the way. But basically, so that was a master plan community, and they had the CDD, which is the community district development, that developed the infrastructure of the area. Now what has happened in a lot of the new builds is that even if it's not a big master plan community, they still have that community district development. And there are some of them that do not. And so if that's something that you're interested, then you want to look at it. So a lot of people say, hey, I want low HOA. So they'll go into a new build and it'll say, well, the HOA is only $50 a year. And you think, wow, that's great. But, maybe you forgot to ask about that community district development fee that is an extra $100 a month that's added on to your taxes. And so the taxes are always going to be $1,200, $1,400, maybe in many cases even higher per year because of that community district development. So that's where it's built in. It's built into the property taxes. So the biggest pet peeve that I talk about all the time is property taxes, that when people are looking online and looking at it and they think that they can determine, really what their taxes are going to be when they purchase the property. And that is a big mistake that people make when they're doing that, because what happens is that property taxes are based on what the current value is when the homeowner buys it. And then if it's bought by an investor or somebody who's going to rent it out or something, then it's going to, the taxes are going to go with the market. So they're going to be pretty close to what they're going to be when you purchase the property. But if you're purchasing a property from an owner that has it homesteaded and maybe has been there a few years, maybe, just even as low as 5 years or something like that, then basically the taxes can change drastically when you purchase it. And so I always tell people that I think it's much better to actually look at what the taxes are going to be from the county in regards to that. So if you're buying a house most of the time in a specific county or a specific area, depending on what the price is, your taxes are going to be the same. If you're buying a $500,000 house, in this neighborhood or that neighborhood, they're probably going to be very similar if they're within a couple of miles to each other and there's no CDD. So I think that, it's really important, in my opinion, to really not pay attention to those things that are out there in historical way for the taxes, because that's not going to be your reality when you move in there. And that's the biggest thing that I hear from people, not people that I work with because I go through all this stuff with them, but basically with people that, are just kind of out there on their own looking at it, and then they go, oh my gosh. And even when you're looking at that CDD, at the beginning, it doesn't sound so daunting and that kind of thing. But as time goes on, sometimes to some people it is. And I had a young gentleman that had bought a house, and he was like, yeah, this is going to be fine and everything. And then as he got into it, he was like, oh, wow, this is a little bit more than what I expected. And so he was looking at the opportunity of selling that house and buying something else. And, financially, it really didn't work out, but it was something that he definitely wanted to look at in order to make that happen. And so, that's something that you might want to consider too, that when you're looking at a property and thinking that you want to make a move, looking at your motivation and why you want to do it is really looking at the whole situation in regards to what it's going to cost you and look like long term, to make sure that it's the exact situation that you want to do. For this young man, he was exactly in the place where he wanted to be. The time to work, the time to his friends, the time to his family, the time to church, all that kind of stuff was perfect for where he wanted to be. And to save $100 to move, 5 miles down the road, and would cost him another 10, 20 minutes every day in travel time and doing different things and going to the grocery store and all those kinds of things, was something that he realized wasn't what he wanted to do. So you have to look at the whole picture in order to make the right decision for you and your family. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. This is Laura Petersen, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. I'm from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And to discuss the sale of your home, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. So I wanted to go through a little bit in regards to the top seller concerns that are out there right now. And basically, in looking at this, I think that there are definitely some different ways of looking at it. So the fear number one is selling for less than peak price, or selling your house for the most. And I think that basically when it comes down to it, you really have to look at what the bottom line is for you, what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish, and all of that kind of thing. Basically, when it comes down to it, you want to look at where you want to end up. In my opinion, is you've got to look at the whole big thing. So if you might get a little bit less than what you would have gotten, say 6 months ago, which it's just going to be a little bit less because our market's very stable. But, like I said, I think that the prices year over year were down 0.3%, which was like, $5,000 on a $500,000 house. So, it's down less than 1%. So not a whole lot of money. And not that saying that $5,000 isn't a lot of money, but my point is that if you're going to make it up on the property that you're going to buy, that you're going to get that for $5,000 less, or maybe you get it for $6,000 or $7,000 less, then your net is actually that you're ahead. And so basically, when you're looking at it, you have to look at the whole big picture in regards to what you want to accomplish and how you want to do it. And then the other thing that exists out there in today's market is convenience. And we do have that too, where you can basically sell your house at market value, but you might have a little bit higher fee in doing that because you're going to have certainty, sell it right away, get the most of your money out, not have to be there when you have showings, all kinds of things like that, that you can move on into a new house before you sell your old house. So that's another huge thing that's out there that you want to accomplish and do and everything. And so basically, when it comes down to it, there are so many opportunities that you have out there that are going to make a difference for you and your family in regards to what's going on out there. And so this fear number one of selling for less than peak price, I think that it definitely, it's not that top line number that's going to matter. It's basically the bottom line number that's going to matter. And in regards to you being where you want to be at that point in time. So the situation is that, when people are selling a house and buying something else, usually it's a lifestyle change. You're either, that you're moving up, that you need a bigger property. Maybe you're moving to a more prestigious area, a better school. All of those kinds of things are things that you might be looking at. Maybe you're downsizing. And that you're looking at situations like that you want to move out a little bit where you don't have as much traffic, which is always kind of a similar thing that people are looking for here in Central Florida. So basically, when it comes down to it, you've got to look at the whole picture when it comes to figuring out what you want to do, for your house. The fear number two that sellers have is finding the next home after you sell. So maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe the way to do it is to have that certainty that your house is sold, and then you can find that next home and have the ability to do it. We actually have a program that is out there that is sell and lease back. So what that means is that you can sell your current home at the market value, and then you can lease it back for up to a year. So what that gives you the opportunity to do is to actually go out there and find a house on your leisure that actually matches what you're looking for. So you don't have to do that. It's not like a 12-month lease that you're locked into it. You can leave at any time. It's very awesome in regards to how that all works. So you can sell and lease back, which is another option, basically for you when it comes down to it. So that takes away fear number two. The fear number three is affording the move to your next home. And basically, when you're looking at that, that's basically another situation that, again, you've got to look at it to leverage your equity in regards to what comes into the next home. And, we've said it many times on this show over the years, which has been, over 10 years now. But basically, you could marry the home and date the rate, because the rates are always going up and down. And so when the rates, maybe they're a little higher right now than what you'd like, but as they go down, then you can refinance and have a different situation. You're not going to be able to afford a home that's going to put you out of your affordability, because that's all regulated, that you cannot, be paying more than on all of your debts, more than 50% of your gross income. So that includes your car payments, your credit cards, all of your payments that you have. You definitely have to have it that it's affordable. So you might stretch a little bit in order to get it because you like to spend a little bit more money going out to eat or traveling or something like that. But basically, when it comes down to it, that's kind of what the bottom line is. And then the fear number four is market uncertainty or economic fears. And basically, when you're in that new home and you're enjoying your lifestyle the way that you want to, it doesn't really matter what's going on in the market. Now, I'm a long-term buyer is basically what I am. I have to admit that. And so the average person, sells their home every 7 years. And I'm more like the 20-year kind of person, basically is what goes on with me. And basically, so I take my time in finding what I want, but then when I find it, I know I'm where I want to be and I'm happy to stay there. And so basically, when it comes down to it, everybody's a little bit different in that. But if the average person is staying there for 7 years, during those 7 years, what's happening in the market is really of no concern to you because you're where you're at. You've got your payment the way that you want it. You're happy where you're at. So what's going on in the market is really not that important in regards to the big scheme of things. And I really think people need to put that in perspective. Before I was a realtor and I was living in a house and everything, and basically what, the neighbor was the realtor that had the house listed. And so, every once in a while I would say, hey, what's going on in the market and all of that kind of stuff. And basically he's like, well, your house has more than doubled in regards to, what was going on. And I was like, wow, really? I didn't have any clue. And it didn't really mean anything to me because I wasn't planning on selling, but it was good to know that that was happening. And then when the crash happened and everything like that, the house went down to well below what I had bought it for. And so, it was kind of that ebb and flow. Again, I wasn't selling, so it didn't affect me. But basically, when it comes down to doing that, you've got to look at that big picture. And then the fear number 5 that we're talking about for sellers is trying to time the market perfectly. And in my opinion, the perfect time to sell is the perfect time for you, not the market. We're very fortunate in Central Florida that our market is very consistent. I was just looking at a 5-year trend and it was showing the sales of the number of houses every month, for the last 5 years. And there was always a little dip. And so I looked at that little dip and it was every January was our big dip. And that's basically because, everybody in December is busy with the holidays, everything that's going on. And so the closings in January are based on that activity that happened in December. And so everybody's kind of taken off. They're doing their own thing, all of that kind of good stuff. And so the January sales are the lowest. So that's predictable, but the rest of the time, for the most part, our sales are pretty consistent. We might have a little bit of dip in September because everybody's getting ready to go back to school and going back to school. But outside of that, we're very consistent in Central Florida. So we don't have like a sale time. They're still going to come out with these dates. This is the best date to list your house. But in my opinion, it really doesn't matter. What matters is the marketing that you do to do it, what you do to get that home sold. And that's going to make all the difference in the world in regards to the results that you have. And obviously the people that you work with in order to make that happen as well. So in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Laura Petersen, your host of Central Florida Real Estate Radio. And in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. That's 407-566-2555. And I am from Your Home Sold, Guaranteed Realty. And so a couple things that I wanted to cover before the show's over today. And one of them is key tax perks. And then the other thing is fraud that is on the rise. So basically, we are right around the corner from April 15th, which will be here this week. And so if you haven't done your taxes yet, and then when you have home ownership, there's some things that you can deduct, and you want to make sure that you do, or at least check to see that it's going to be worth your while to do that based on the minimum deduction and everything that's out there. So you want to talk with your, with your accountant. So the maximum amount of debt is limited to $750,000 on the mortgage interest reduction that you can take. So basically, so that started 8 years ago. So deductible mortgage interest is interest you pay on a loan secured by a main home or second home that was used to buy, build, or substantially improve the home. So basically, you're required to itemize it on your tax return. Okay. And then the home equity loan interest deduction is another thing that you can take the interest off of that. You have to meet the IRS requirements for this, and it allows you to deduct the interest paid on qualifying home equity loans or line of credit from your taxable income. And then there is a home office deduction that basically, if you use part of your house for business purposes, the home office must be used for your self-employment or gig work or contracting. Employees are not eligible to claim the deduction. And then you have the real estate tax deduction, that's your property taxes, and you can subtract up to $10,000 of state and local taxes that include property taxes and income or sales tax. So possibly sales tax can enter into that as well. And then capital gain tax exclusion. You can, if you sell your house and there's a gain on it, as a single person, it's $250,000 that you can eliminate from that, and $500,000 for joint filers of your homes. So that's basically what the bottom line is on that. So that's coming up this week, that the tax deadline is just a few short days away. And so basically that's something that you'll want to look at. The second thing that I wanted to talk about for the rest of the show is fraud and how prevalent it is becoming in real estate. So basically, you see some of those commercials on TV that show, you've got that home lock or whatever, that they're going to say if somebody comes in and puts a bunch of gets mortgages out on your property and says that you're you, and then they come back and your house is in foreclosure because somebody got money out of it and all of that kind of thing. Those kinds of things, I would check on my title insurance to see if that's something that could be covered by that. I don't know if it would be or not, but if that happened to me, that would be something that I would check out, because I got title insurance when I bought it, and that probably doesn't do it, honestly, when I'm talking about it now, because that covers when you purchase the house that something happened. Now, we did have a case where it was a fraudulent sale that actually happened, and this was several years ago, but what happened was that I had someone that called me up that wanted to sell their vacant lot, and we got all the paperwork done. They sent me their driver's license, which was the name of the people with the same address and everything that was on the tax record. And so we went ahead and we actually sold the property. And so it didn't happen overnight either. It was about a 30 to 60 day sale because it was a vacant lot, not a lot going on with it. We actually talked to the neighbor of the property who had been cutting the grass on it and everything, and the reason they were cutting the grass on it because it was right next door to their property, and they didn't want to see the grass that wasn't cut, so they cut it so that it looked nice and everything. So they had been doing it. So my assumption was that they had been in touch with the owner, and they said, hey, it was actually on a lake. And so they said, hey, we would like to do a shared dock with the new owner and everything. And that would be great. Well, the benefit of it and the really good thing that happened as a result of it is that the people that bought it were going to build on it, and they had not started building yet, because in some cases the owner of the property would say, hey, yeah, I'm willing to sell it, and you can go ahead and and as long as I get the money for it, then they were willing to do it. But this guy, he wanted that land because he did plan on building on it himself. And so he wanted it back. So the title insurance did kick in and pay back the buyer for the amount that they had gotten. We were in touch with law enforcement, giving them all of our documents, and the basically this particular person that had been doing it, they had it was very hard to capture them. They had a notary that was a bona fide notary, but it wasn't their actual signature. They had a bank account with these people's names on it, but it wasn't their bank account and everything like that. So what had happened is that it didn't really go anywhere right away. But then I was contacted by the sheriff down in Broward County because they had been doing it there and they had them. So this case added on to what they were doing in Broward County, and they got them and everything in regards to what was going on. So basically, there's a lot of things that you need to watch out for, but title insurance is critical, obviously, in doing that, and just making sure that that you're putting your best foot forward, because everybody was doing exactly what they thought, and we had everything that we could tell was the actual person. But I got a call about 30 to 60 days after the sale from the real owner. And so that was quite a shock, but it was, we did everything we could to make it right, and it was made right. And so that's the bottom line in regards to all of that. But I'm out of time for today. And so in order to get in touch with us, you can call or text 407-566-2555. You can find us online at centralfloridarealestateradio.com, and we'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.